Good evening and welcome to Newsmaker Live. Thank you very much for joining us for this program. You just listened to the address by the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, the Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony, addressing the nation on the current impasse between the government and the public sector unions. As he says, the unions are asking for 6% with 8 conditions. The government is only willing to offer 4% in increased wages for the triennium 2010 to 2013. So we have a lot more news on that. This week we'll be following up on those issues and see how the unions respond. We know that the CSA will be meeting with its members tomorrow morning 8 o'clock at the CSA Center. So we'll get reaction from the union leadership when we meet with them tomorrow at the CSA Center, and also from the president of the Trade Union Federation, Julian Monrose, to discuss whether this presentation or this offer by the Prime Minister is acceptable. Also, he says that since he has recognized that the two sides are at an impasse, so he has called for arbitration. Historically, unions have not have been reluctant, let me just put it that way, to to go the route of arbitration, because once you go that route, the decision is binding. Well, this evening we want to discuss water. You have heard, I'm sure, of the proposed rate increases for the Water and Sewage Company for water and sewage services. And tonight, joining us on the program is the Executive Director of the National Water and Sewage Commission, Mr. Kelly Joseph, and the Managing Director of the Water and Sewage Company, Mr. John Joseph. Yes, namesakes, but I don't think they have any relation.
I don't think so.
Good evening, gentlemen. It's good to have you, and I saw you listening very, very keenly to the address of the Prime Minister, something that many of us have been following, and you know, just keeping our ears open to the developments between the government and the public sector unions. But of course, we're not here to discuss the Prime Minister's address. We're here to discuss another issue which has been burning in the public's eye, and that is the proposed rates for water. Now, before we get into the rates, let me just introduce Mr. Joseph, who is the new Executive Director of the National Water and Sewage Commission. And since, you know, we all know JJ. He has been here before. We have discussed water in the past. We have presented some ideas, some strategies to take us out of the hole that WASCO is in. So let's talk about the purpose of the Water and Sewage Commission. What really is the role of the commission?
Basically, let me say good evening to begin with. The role of the commission is to regulate the delivery of water and sewage services throughout St. Lucia. We are a regulator. I know the word regulator may sound a bit strange, but we are actually there to regulate WASCO. So what it means is that, among other things, we are responsible for the establishment and the of tariff. We are also responsible for advising the minister on water works. We also responsible for dealing with complaint when WASCO don't resolve them. So we have a number of key function and role that is the commission.
Now, one of the issues that has been raised so far this week, from what I've been hearing, is an association between the commission and the government, or the commission and the minister. Can you talk to the difference, or is there really a separation between the two, or just working at the behest of the minister?
No, they're totally separated. Actually, we take our marching order from the Water and Sewage Act of 2005, amended in 2008. That's where we get our marching order. Obviously, the government would normally set the general policy, but the commission is not influenced by the minister. In other words, the minister cannot say, okay, let's give WASCO 10% or 15%. As a matter of fact, in that determination that was recently done, we actually never even received a call from the minister, because the minister recognized that the commission must be independent. Because you see, the importance of independence is that we want to have strong institutions in St. Lucia that people can have respect for. You may not necessarily agree with the outcome, but you would have a certain degree of respect. I mean, in most countries you have a regulator. I mean, I was in Jamaica in last year, November, December, I spent 2 weeks at the Office of Utility Regulation. They have a well-established regulator that is multi-sector. In the case of St. Lucia, we only regulating water and sewage, but if you look at Jamaica, they have had a long history, I think almost 15 years actually. So our intention going forward is to establish a certain degree of credibility for the NWSC, because
go ahead.
Because you want a person to view your decision as being independent from government. I think that is really important, and that is why I've been saying this week, we need to decouple government from the commission. The commission is a commission. We cannot look at the rate of VAT in order to make a determination. WASCO is separate from the commission. So if WASCO make an application to the commission have no other choice but to accept it and to consider it. Failure to do so is a total dereliction of duty. So like I've been saying, we are faithful to the Water and Sewage Act. That is what we are faithful to, nothing else but the Act.
Now, building public confidence in the commission, it's a new commission. We have not had this organization or agency in the past operating as it should. How difficult do you see that challenge to win public confidence?
I think it's a challenge. I think it's a mountain that we can climb. I think it is really necessary to educate the general public on the role of the commission. As a matter of fact, when we started in September of last year, we got a number of calls actually in terms of persons who had a water issue with developers. As you may know or appreciate, the commission is not the first call for complaint actually. The first call for complaint is actually WASCO. We only intervene when the matter is not resolved. That's when we intervene. Okay. Also, you must understand too is that the commission have some investigative role. For instance, you may have an issue with a meter. If that is the case, the commission will intervene. We may bring on board the Bureau of Standard to look at whether the meter is still functioning properly. So I think what is really necessary is to have an open dialogue with the population of St. Lucia.
Great. JJ, let me bring you in. Welcome to Newsmaker Live once again.
Thanks, and good evening.
Good evening, good evening. The commission has not been functioning. I know that WASCO, for its part, had been wanting a commission to make representation. How happy is WASCO right now that the commission is finally in place and functioning?
Well, yeah, like I've said before, in any utility where there's no competition, there has to be an independent regulator that is operating with fairly straightforward and clear and transparent guidelines that the utility has to comply with. So any decision that the regulator makes is done in a very objective manner. They can demand information from the utility, which has to be provided in the manner they've asked. And so any decision that they make is done reasonably and is done in the interest of both the utility and its customers. Without that kind of oversight, it is extremely difficult to manage a monopoly, if you haven't got a regulator. So, I mean, this is something that has to happen. And I trust that the regulator will develop and it'll become, as Mr. Joseph is saying, an entity that is respected, that is independent of influence. And we've said so before that to build public confidence, the regulator must be independent and must also be seen to be independent. So we trust that they will do that. I think from what we have seen, they seem to have been going along the right track. I think they have actually sought assistance from a well-established regulator in reviewing our application. And from the best of my knowledge and what I've seen, they've been doing, they started very well.
Now, of course, WASCO made the application to the regulator. How detailed was that process? How lengthy, how complicated was that process to get that application prepared to pass on to the regulator? Not
necessarily complicated. The Act is fairly explicit on what is required for every type of application. And there are basically 3 types of applications that you can make to the Commission. There is an indexation that deals with inflationary issues on an annual basis. There's a triennial review that looks at the long term. It looks at investment criteria, it looks at investment funding, And there's an extraordinary review which can be done any time, actually not only by the utility, but it can also be initiated by the Commission.
Okay.
When a number of factors have led to deterioration of the utilities revenue stream. And it is on this, this is the type that we have actually applied for. And we have provided information based on what is required in the Act. And having done that, the Commission then did a certain amount of due diligence. They requested more information. They analyzed what we sent and made a determination.
Now, Kelly, you were speaking this week, and one of the things that you highlighted was the process of considering the application. Fill us in a bit about the process and the process that the Commission went through in considering wasco's application.
You see, the first thing we had to do was to establish a test whether there was a ground for an extraordinary review, because I think that is the point of departure. And once we established that was a fact, we now had to establish what you call a test year. A test year is a period of time that you can get, that you use as your basis, that you can get financial information. In the case of WASCO, 2012 was used as the test year. The only thing though is that we did not have actual information for December of 2012. So what we had to do was basically forecast December based on what happened in the past. So once we were able to do that, we now look at WASCO's information from 2012, and we were able to calculate the revenue requirement. There is a formula. I really don't want to go into the technical, but there is a formula that you would have to use. But one of the things I don't want to depart too much from the conversation, is that when we talk about a tariff review process, I think some persons believe that a tariff review automatically means an increase in tariff. That's not true, actually. A tariff review process can also mean a decrease. I mean, Mr. Joseph just hinted about an extraordinary review. You may have an extraordinary review where the Commission demand of WASCO that we need to have a review, an extraordinary review, where the Commission will say, okay, based on the circumstances of the time, we may have to reduce rate. So a tariff review process is not only an increase. It can mean that you reduce. It can mean that the rate remains the same. But there is a number. It will be contingent on a number of variables.
Wonderful. You're watching Newsmaker Live. My guest this evening, Kelly Joseph, who is the Executive Director of the National Water and Sewage Commission, and Mr. John Joseph, who is the Managing Director of the Water and Sewage Company. Stay with us. We'll take our first break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the proposed rates.